do, do. All right. Hey, everybody. This is Little Black Book. I am here with two fantabulous guests. I've got Curtis and Nicole with me today, who I will let them introduce themselves in a minute. If you are joining us today, we are talking about, well, marriage, as always, guys. And what we're talking about today really is, can you prepare for marriage? Now, if you guys have been following this channel for a little while, you know, we have a lot of very deep conversations around relationships, around how to maintain, how to build, conflict resolution, and all that beautiful stuff. But today we want to delve into an aspect which I personally don't have actual experience in, which is actual marriage. Okay, yeah, I can tell you about relationships and I can tell you some theories about marriage, but here today we're going to deal with some practical issues and some practical things concerning marriage. So I'm going to let my guests introduce themselves. I'm going to first start with a returnee guest. You guys might recognize the handsome face here as Curtis. Curtis, you want to introduce yourself, what you do?
First compliment of the week, boy. Yeah, listen, man, this is Marriage UK. So we do the same thing. We have these real talk around relationships, marriage, divorce, and single life. We do it all in that respect because they're all connected. We're talking, we have conversations around the self, getting ready for or not getting ready for marriage. And also my wife, who's on tomorrow with you.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
Same time, and we do that together. At the same time, I am a social worker, and we work in youth offending at the moment, which is a madness right now in London. So that's where we are, man. So yeah, we can check out our channel. This is Marriage UK.
Yeah.
To know more about what we do. Let me hand you over to Nick.
Go for it.
So obviously you can see my name. My name is Nicole Sanderson. I am a singer, songwriter. I'm from Reading, down south. If you don't know where that is, it's just outside of London. It's not that far. I work as part of a company who deals with student complaints. We adjudicate for student complaints. We try and sort out the problems and the issues and see if we can make it fair for students. That's what I currently do, as well as leading the Reading Community Gospel Choir, which we won last year.
Come on now.
Check us out now.
Come on now.
But yeah, that's just a bit about me, really. Not much more.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. So yeah, guys, those are my two great panelists who've introduced themselves. That's Curtis and Nicole once more. So today's conversation, we are talking about, again, can you prepare for marriage? Now, I know a lot of us are quite young who follow this channel, probably looking for partners or with a partner at the moment, considering getting into marriage. I guess my kind of first question is for a definition, your definition, not a spiritual one or anything like crazy, but your actual definition of what you call marriage. I think that I want to start at that level and then go for that conversation. What is your definition of marriage?
Question.
I'll go from Curtis and then go to Nick if you want.
Nicole, you sure you don't want to go first though?
I should have done ladies first, right?
I don't know. It's up to you.
I'm just going to say what first came into my head. But for me, marriage is choosing to do life next to this person, basically. And choosing to every day be part of that union, making a choice to be with that person and let them walk with you through all the ups, downs, everything that happens, successes, failures, whatever. So making that choice and making the choice to have that person be your person that walks with you on this journey. That's probably what I would say is marriage to me.
Like that. Curtis, you want to add to that?
Man, so you know what? Married folks should have a definition locked, like in the palm of their hand, just written down, tattooed right there. And we don't, because I think, well, I speak for myself actually, and this might be a tribute to the way that I process life, is that I'm quite complex in the way I think. And sometimes people have a hard time dealing with it. If you ask me to define marriage, I think marriage looks different depending on what stage you're at. And so I can define it outside of marriage. I can define it on paper, but when I'm in it, it's just different things at different times. So, for example, sometimes it's friendship, sometimes it's argument, sometimes it's tears, sometimes it's just sitting back and letting go, and sometimes it's like you're asking yourself, "What have I done?" But that in itself is an encompassing of what marriage is about, more than what the definition of it. To define it, it's a choice. That marriage is a choice that you have to do every day.
Yeah. I like that.
It might feel like a one-off thing, which it isn't that ceremony, Nicole. The ceremony, you're like, yeah, I'm married, but then you're like, a month later, you're like, oh, okay, interesting. I've seen this, I've seen that. This is what I'm feeling and thinking. I'm like, okay.
Oh yes.
Let's be married. How are we going to do marriage now? You know what I mean? So marriage is an interesting concept. It's not just one thing.
Nicole, do you want to add to that in terms of, he mentioned something which is key. He said marriage is, what would you say? It's a choice that we do every day. I mean, what does that mean to you? When you hear those words, what does that mean to you?
You have to, this is going to sound a bit strange, but you have to wake up every morning and decide that, you know, I am going to be invested in this thing. I think that you have to actively work on it. You have to actively put into it. You have to every day think about ways for it to develop, for you to resolve things, for you to not resolve things. Like, it's an everyday thing. And you have to be invested. If you're not somebody who likes to be committed to things, then I've had people say to me, you know, what do you think about me getting married? And I'm like, well, your commitment just I just think maybe not now, but think about it. I would never say to somebody, no, you know, don't do that, but I would say really think about it, because it's not something that you can just switch off or say, I'm not doing this today. It kind of doesn't work like that. So you have to be fully invested, and both people have to be fully invested into it. Otherwise, sometimes I just think, well, what's the point if you're both not going to be fully invested? Then, you know,
I like that. Before we go into, I guess, the actual conversation and delving into the actual question that we posed, I don't know if you guys want to share, respectively, how long have you guys been married for? I guess that would help us, because what I want to ask is a question of comparison from day .1 to now. How has the journey been? That's what I want to ask. So I guess you don't have to tell us the exact amount of years. If you're in the decades, fantastic. If you know what I'm saying. But I kind of just want to get a little bit of an angle in terms of, does it change over time? You know what I mean?
19 years. Sorry, I cut you. Yeah, 19 years.
Respect to that. 19 years. Yeah.
Big time. He's doing jail time. Nicole, what about you?
I'm 3 years. 3 years in.
Beautiful.
And I sometimes feel like it's been longer. Not in a bad way, but it just feels so it just feels great. So sometimes it feels like it's been a lot longer than that. And our first year was a bit rocky. So yeah, that's another story. But yeah, 3 years.
We might come to that story, man.
Exactly. You know me. I said, I said, ting, 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 ting. I said, we gonna ask some questions. Girl, you shouldn't have said nothing. I'm a couple of them things.
Okay. I think we're going there, you know.
We are. We're gonna go there.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to.
So the reason why I asked that question, as I said, is because I want to really get. Because I think for a lot of us, especially like myself, I don't know what they call it, Gen X or Gen Z or whatever, and before the millennials, whatever, we have a very, I would call a fantasy mindset when it comes to marriage. All right. Social media has really given a lot of people, and TV and film, given us a very unique idea of what we think a long-term commitment looks like. Right. And so I guess, even respectively, 3 years and 19 years, it's still a long time, right? And so I guess I want to ask you both, what have you seen, or what has changed in that time, part of that journey? What has changed? Because because my next question is going to be following on from that, but what has for you has kind of changed in between that time? What have you learned in between that time that you've been married? Curtis is about to give us that bomb, boy.
I can feel it. Come through with the bomb.
I know I have to be careful, man. I can only take so
please
much
don't
bombs
outpass,
now, you know
please.
what I'm saying? I learned after 13, 14 years, it's that marriage is the opposite to what I think it is. Everything is the complete opposite. There was nothing that I had perceived, and I don't think I had many perceptions different from anybody else, really. I discovered that marriage is the opposite to my expectations. So you're expecting levels of fulfillment and levels of relationship, and just like Eddie Hippolyte said, you know, the success does not come without sacrifice. Freedom does not come without a fight, and peace does not come without war. And I say that people are thinking, "What you mean? It's all it's not all negative. It's like I recognize that. You know, I went in there thinking, we're gonna have sex like this. We're gonna have it this often. We're gonna hold each other's hands, walk down the street. Man, we'll drop into a cafe. I'm gonna buy 3 houses.
Yeah, fairytale.
We're gonna do exercise together. I remember there was one year we had the same trainers on. We bought the same trainers, right? This was about 16 odd years ago, man. I was in a sports shop and she was like, "Yeah, it's me. Yeah, you get it as well." She goes, "Yeah, that's what love does to you. It makes you buy trainers that you know." That you wouldn't normally wear, but you know, we was doing that, and it's the opposite now. It's like now I'm like, I need stability and I need depth, and you just are not gonna get that until you sacrifice. You know what I mean? Let me hold it there. Let me hold it there.
Nicole, do you want to add to that? Because obviously you've been here for 3 years, and I think that's a key time. I think that's a key time. 3 years, I think, is a key time. Why here? When I hear people speak about marriage, that 1, 2, 3,
3 years,
up to that 7th year, I hear things like it's a key time. So
it's key times, key testimonies coming through. I'm telling you, definitely.
I probably have to agree with that. It's funny because you said expectations. That's what I was actually going to say. That a lot of the expectations that I had going into marriage were completely shattered, like within the first week. And I'm glad that they were shattered, because I had a perception of what I expected from my husband, and that wasn't happening in certain areas. And he had an expectation of what I was supposed to be doing. But the minute we put all of that aside, we started to sail. And really, that's how it's been since. We started to sail, and as we sail along on our boat, we stop off sometimes here, we stop off here, we learn this here, this happens here. I've become a lot more what's the word, I don't want to say flexible, because I wasn't really not flexible before, but I've kind of learned to just go with the flow a lot more. I would say compromising. I'm somebody who likes to be organized all the time. Like, I hear this all the time.
I'm not.
My husband is the complete opposite to that. So can you imagine 2 people like that constantly? Whew, yeah, it was a lot at times. But we're still here. But yeah, I think the expectations had to really vanish, because we weren't making any progress. We were holding each other to these ideals that weren't realistic. And so, you know, he felt bad about himself. I felt bad about myself, because I felt like I wasn't doing what he wanted, and he felt like he wasn't doing what I wanted. And we decided, let's just strip this thing down. Let's just remember that this is our marriage, and that we have a specific journey, and, you know, it's very specific to us. We create it to be what we want it to be. God is obviously going to be with us at all times, but you really feed in and create it to what you want it to be. And yeah, I think the expectations, once they had gone, we definitely started to sail a lot. So yeah, I have to agree with expectations. I have to. And what you said about film, you know what? I think we need to stop watching some of these stupid films that teach us, all this stuff about,
soap
all them.
operas.
Oh, some of these films, man, they just get mixed up, and especially for women, because we like to romanticize every situation. But that's not the reality. That is
It's really not.
like, if I could tell anybody, please, like, those films are nowhere near sometimes what is the actual reality. It's all there to make us feel great, and then you see something in a movie and you're like, why doesn't he do that? He's supposed to be doing that, and it's like, hold on a second here. It's a film, and a film is there to make you feel that kind of way. They need to sell and make money, but it's not reality. And I just think some of those films do not help people's mindsets, and for some of us it's actually doing damage. Watching all these things, all those, I used to watch everything, like, Deliver Us from Eva, to like all the films, the black films that you used to see, the romantic ones, every single one. I've seen it. Well, what does it do for you at the end of the day? Because that's not reality. So
it shapes your reality, doesn't it?
And it does,
and it sets you up for a fall, because you're going to go in and like, why is it? And probably quietly be like, why is my man doing this? Why isn't he doing that? Where's my flowers? Where's my kiss?
Exactly.
Where's this? Where's that? It's like, man's going through something and you don't.
It's like, this is the thing. Like, nobody wakes up with nice smelling breath. Like, people need to understand.
This
when
is
you
so
get
true.
married, the breath is fire in the morning.
And listen,
so
it's true.
You need to be able to cope with that. If you can't cope with that, I mean, like, people really need to understand the breath doesn't smell like
How you know that, bro?
I don't know how I know that. I don't know how I know that. I don't know how I know that. I had a life before Jesus, people. Okay, cool. Look, I'm loving this conversation where it's going to. Okay, I don't know if I can press you guys. I'm not asking you to out any partners, please. I'm asking, can you give us an example of an expectation that you had? Just one that you had going into the marriage, and when you got there, what reality set in? Like, how did it make you feel? How did you work around it? You know what I'm saying? Because I think for a lot of us, that's the critical part. It's how do you work that process when you're going from the expectation to the reality? You know what I mean? Because everyone's got expectations. You know what I mean? So if I can get one example from both of you, just an expectation, and then when you went to a relationship, you're like, oh, no, this is not it.
That's a very good question.
Go on, Nick, take it, because he's got to think about 5 or 6
it's
that
fresh
he's
for
got.
you,
So.
Nicole. It's fresh for you. Like, I'm sitting there going like, 2, 3, 4. I can't even remember, but yeah.
Okay, a very basic, practical one. Like, I expected my husband to take the lead on anything when it came to the car. So that meant
talk about this.
Washing the car. That meant making sure the MOT was, up to date, and making sure the insurance, when it needs to renew, like that was like, I didn't want to like have to even think about that anymore. And that was that didn't happen. That didn't happen at first at all. That didn't happen. It was a lot to get used to. Like I said, I'm a very organized person, so I like to know, the dates, when this needs to go here and that. Whereas my husband, that's not his strength. And so
I love that.
Because I had expected him to do that, when things went wrong, I nearly blew my head off. I was like, what is going on here? You should have known this. And I was like, hold on a second, let me just wait. Have we actually had a conversation about how we're going to manage the car situation? Have we actually discussed what we want to do, as a couple? Is he happy to take care of the car and everything like that? Have we discussed it? Have we talked about it? Has he explained to me things that he needs, maybe reminders that I can help him with? I realized very quickly that it was a 2 people thing, not a 1 person thing. And we're in the marriage together, which means that, although I expected him to do that, I also have a responsibility to partner with him on that and support him. So if he's forgetful, I'll keep the dates and I'll remind you, okay, babe, in a month's time, the MOT is due. You need to, kind of get that. What's wrong with that? Rather than just expecting him to just do it.
I hope my missus is watching this. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Wah. Yes. Thank you, sis. Thank you, sis. Glory to God. Curtis, you want to add on to that?
Glory to God.
You know what's interesting is because when Nicole, your setup and my setup is the same. So I have skills, but they're not in being organized, in it.
Yeah,
so
that's me too.
So I wouldn't say I'm totally disorganized, but there was phases where it was really bad, I guess. And I guess when it would just sit there watching and waiting, like, is he going to do this? And in the back of my mind, it was like, yeah. And then it's like, now it's gone to that point where I think I've gone past the deadline, so I'm just going to block it out because that's what that's my coping mechanism at the time, which is you know. And so what was interesting about the journey of from dating then into marriage and then the expectations being realized was I thought that we were perfect for each other in that she gets me and she would you know, when we sit down around the table, because I remember when we were planning our wedding, we sat down in her living room in her flat. She had a flat share at the time, and we made their wedding invitations by hand. We decided the dates, we decided the musicians, and we had, you know, we've both got like 500 people on each side of the family, and we've only got 250 seats for the wedding, and we worked it out really nicely. We spoke about it like, that cousin can't come because he's got 6 kids. We're probably gonna have to ask some of our uncles, you know what I'm saying? And it was like we did that very peacefully. And you know, it was a thing of, yeah, I know what you're saying. And then coming into marriage and finding that because she works completely different, because we are so different. And I didn't know that until year and a half. Where she wants problems worked out a certain way, and I'm like, well, let's do it this way. And then and I'm careful what I say now, because I know this game, yeah. But it was a thing where for years, because we think we will look at the same object, and if Kojo or Nicole says, "What do you see?" It could be a white football. She would describe it as something else because she's got lenses, right? And I've got lenses, and these lenses are developed through childhood. You inherited genetics and experiences, and you're looking at this one simple object on the floor. One person could say it's round, and another one could say it's mess. It needs to be put away. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, well, why do you want to put it away? Because it's messy, but it's nice. I don't like it. Argument. And really, in my immaturity, it was in our immaturity, it was, let me hold it down a little bit. We see things differently. And like I said, a white football, a white tennis ball, it is exactly that to me. And to someone else, it could be an encumbrance, it could be a fear, it could bring back memories. And so expectations of thinking that we would just fit like a glove. No.
Yeah.
And man, I could go into it.
But you
understand, right? Yeah.
We're catching up.
Okay, so what happened is
make sure you get confirmation. That's what I look.
I know.
Make sure you get a confirmation.
But you know what? It's like one of the reasons why we do our channel is because we're trying to say to people, don't take as long as we did to work it out. This is what we didn't, because we had no, and you can't really count Christian counseling just 6 weeks before the wedding. You can't count that.
Yeah.
You need years of counseling, you know, because it's too short and it doesn't go deep enough. So I'm not sure what it really does.
Wow.
It might be more for the pastor than it is. No critique to, because one of them is our really good friend who features with us. But again, that was for us, it was 20 years ago. And I think nowadays we're kind of cracking the egg on what it is to be married and have relationships. But back then, I mean, we weren't educated, and we weren't educated out of or into an awareness of who we were and where we came from. I mean, we're discovering things now.
This is it. This is what I want to go to.
Wow.
Now. And so we're saying to people, deal with your stuff now.
That's a title.
Don't wait. It's long. It's just long.
Yeah.
Let me sharp there.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Before I let Nicole speak, I think, do you know what's interesting? Because I want us to go a little bit deeper before we answer the question, because I think this is a permanent point. Because I think people, we all come into, because I saw some comments and I was like, I think sometimes people don't realize we all come into relationship with expectations. No matter how sensible you think you are, you come, even if you're sensible, you come with the fact that someone should be sensible along. That's an expectation. You know what I mean? And we all come with expectation. We expect the person to play a certain role. And I think that in marriage is where I think a lot of us who are in relationships may not see it, because no matter how long you're in a relationship, because you haven't made that final commitment to say the door is shut, there is no return. You sometimes don't get to see some aspects of what happens when, like you were saying, over time, getting to see that the person thinks this way and they're immovable on that. So I don't know if you want to kind of speak to that in terms of, like, again, talking about expectations, and just kind of, I guess, dealing with the development of moving from that to saying, okay, this is where I'm, do you know what? That was an expectation, but you know what? I think I got to see it differently. You know,
and I think that really is it. You have to talk about your expectations because they have formed who you are as a person. And to a certain degree, that is probably what may have attracted the other person to you. So you have to have a conversation about the expectations, but it's what you do when they're not met. And it's where you place them in terms of their importance in your relationship or your marriage. If they're up here, you're finished, because there's no room for failure. There's no room for failure or getting it wrong. Do you put room for getting things wrong? Do we think about that? Like, I heard a sermon the other day which said that it's two sinners marrying each other. So why do people expect the person to get everything right and be perfect and give them what they need? I feel a lot of people don't talk deep enough and don't really know how to articulate what they need and what they want. That causes problems. You've got to find a way to communicate to your spouse. We all talk, we talk to our friends, you know, whatever, but do you speak the language your spouse understands? Because you could be saying the same thing over and over again. They don't necessarily not agree with you. They're just not hearing you. They don't get it because you're not speaking in a way that, you know, they understand and they can receive it. That's something that you have to learn over time. That's something that I've had to learn as well. You know, if I want my husband to do something, I need to encourage him, not the opposite. Like, you know, some people critique, and critique is important. There's a place for that, but you've got to really understand what the other person responds to. And so when you have these expectations, like I was saying, where do you place them? How important are they? And do you talk about them? Do you talk about whether they're even realistic? Is it realistic that, you know, he takes out the bins every single time it needs to go out and he works long hours? It might be an expectation, but is it realistic that he does that? You're in the house, and if you don't, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, you have to talk about these things. It's when the expectations stay up here and then start to dictate how you move, and you're not communicating, you're not talking to each other about that. So yeah,
I love that.
Nicole's I've learned a lot in my 3 years. A lot.
Sis, I see the experience is already coming true. Don't worry.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
The courage to that. Yep. And you know what? That's it. Yeah. Go on. Come on.
No, I was just gonna say there are gonna be some things that you can only learn from being in the marriage context. So we're talking about, can you prepare for marriage? Yeah, I believe you can. But I also believe there are going to be certain things, no matter what preparation you do, until you come up to that in the situation, you're not really gonna. Because Curtis was talking about premarital counseling. I have to agree with you on that. I can't actually remember what we discussed before we got married. And if I've really applied any of that stuff, I went to a marriage retreat. That was more informative to us. But the counseling before, I have to be honest, I can't really, I don't know. And I'm not saying don't do it. I still think it's important because it does bring out questions that you may never have, you know, thought about or discussed. But yeah, it's a life journey experience. It's a course that you learn as you go along.
It's like you're getting the paperwork for a degree that you haven't even earned yet. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's back and front, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So hitting that question, obviously, we'll deal with the communication with comprehension because that's also my question list. So shout out to you, the Holy Spirit's moving. Because we're talking about, I think this is a key point. I think you've mentioned something which is really key here. And again, this is no insult to any person who's doing marriage counseling before the time. But I think you're talking about something which is really, really interesting, and I think is important to discuss, which is, are you saying, if I'm hearing correctly, there is not enough depth in terms of making us comprehend or understand in terms of what you're going into, in terms of that first the pre-counseling? Is that what you're kind of saying?
Do you know what? Let me answer like let me give an answer on that.
Go for it.
There are very few marriages that I trust. Why am I saying that? Do you think that every minister is a testament to marriage? Now, our denomination is kind of different, but it is because our pastors come and go. You know, sorry, Nicole, man. But you know what? Our pastors come and go. In our denomination, our pastors are with us like 2, 3, 5 years, and they're gone. So we see, but when you're in a church community that is kind of more stabilized and concrete, where the minister, and they call her the first lady, I mean, that alone is a problem. And so what it is that these people have an aura that speaks for them, but it doesn't mean that they're having a relationship. And so there are many people out there in positions of authority that want to counsel, like, oh, we've got a sister in our congregation who wants to, we're going to counsel her for marriage, and a brother for marriage. But the truth is, guys, I want you to take note of this. I'm throwing this out there and upset a few people, is that the days of sermons are coming to an end. The only thing that's really going to be relevant is what we see. And young people are going by what they see. You have no street cred if they can't see your thing. And it's like with my kids, for example, I can't sit down with them and say, this is God. Let's open the Bible. This is God. They now have to, they're like, show me. Show me who God is. And so when I'm saying to them, this is love, I have to show them. When I'm talking about grace, I can't just theorize grace. And so when ministers are, when we're getting premarital counseling, we can't assume that these ministers are loving their wives, because many a man, and I've done it myself, many a man is putting a church before his family. But they attend church, they look good because they're dressed up, and then they know the scriptures, and they can scream and shout and get into the spirit, and they can get a revelation. You know, they can do it. Who can't do that? The devil can preach. Even the devil gave a little sermon a couple times in scripture, testament of who Christ was. Anyone can do that. But show me, pastor, sit down. Have they ever sat down in front of the church and the man talk about how this is what I learned. This is how I love my woman. So premarital counseling needs to be done by people who can demonstrate
cheese and bread.
Go on,
go on, Nick. Go on, Nick.
I've got no words. I'm just taking.
That's not a word against the guys that.
No. I know.
I think I think it's a very valid point. Yeah. Oh, wow.
Wow. You know what? It's interesting. Go on, Nick. Go on, Nick.
No. You go.
No, I was going to say it's interesting that. Oh, did it again? Sorry, my bad. I was just going to say it's interesting that obviously you bring that point up, because I think that is a key point about lifestyle and that being shown. You know what I mean? Like, it's very hard when it's almost like the friend that is bitter, that's not with somebody, telling you how to live your relationship, but they've never been in a relationship. But anyway, let me know. But yeah, Nick, go on. You can talk. Sis.
I was just gonna say, this is why it's so important that you surround yourself with positive demonstrations. It's so important, like what you were just saying, you know, you're not gonna, as a married woman, go to your best friend who's single. Like these sorts of things you've got to be cautious of. For advice, you've got to be cautious of. I'm not saying they haven't got anything good to say. Yeah, they will, but you've got to be cautious of that. And it's about what you see. And this is why I get frustrated sometimes in our churches where we don't hear from couples. We don't, there's no like, okay, we're going to tell you about this, or, you know, we're going to, you know, counsel you on this, or we're going to support you with this. I think that would be more beneficial, is if you had couples who got together and sort of shared a bit about, you know, their experiences, what happened to them in their first year, you know, things like that.
You know what happened? I remember a little while ago, a guy called me up and was like, man, I need your help, man. I think we're going to split up. And he was telling me what they went through. And I was just like, bro, you're all right, man.
You'll
You
be
ain't going
fine.
through nothing. You're all right.
Yeah.
You're going to get through this. It's just a moment. Just relax, man.
Yeah.
He's like, what do you mean? And I, you know, it took me about 10 minutes. And afterwards, he's like, oh, thanks, man. I feel better. I was like, bro, you ain't been through nothing yet. Yeah, what you just described there was a light thing. But man, need to hear. I had to show him a little couple things that me and Juanita have gone through. And I'm like, and he was like, okay. I said, yeah, bro, you can get through that. People have gone through worse. You know, I mean, but until, like you said, Nick, until someone says, until I come to Nicole and say, boy, I'm struggling. Nicole says, oh yeah, we had that as well.
Yeah.
Pastors don't do that.
No, they don't.
Well,
not at all.
Not all pastors. In my culture, in our time,
I know what I mean.
They were never going to do that.
Yeah.
They were happy to tell you what to do, but they weren't going to tell you what they were doing. Never happened.
There's too much pedestal stuff, you know, and
the titles. Yeah.
It's just not helpful. It's not helpful for young people. It's not helpful for people who are wanting to make that step. You know, you should be the ones speaking to them actively, sharing things. Yeah, I totally agree. I agree with that, definitely.
I think this is really key. I think a scripture that comes to mind is something to do with wise counsel, people around you. I always forget the scripture, but it's in Proverbs.
That's like Proverbs,
keeping wise people around you. And actually, when you look even in Esther as well, in the book of Esther, King Xerxes had 7 wise men. He made sure that his counsel was, he kept wise counsel so that the echo chamber, because it's the echo chamber. Do you understand?
Yeah.
You need to have people, like you were saying, Nick, you need to have people around you that are going to feed you with correct words at the time. Because let me tell you something, even in relationships, sometimes you're at the point of I'm ready to go. You know what I'm saying? And you need someone to say, listen, hey, come on, bro. It's not that deep, bro. Do you know what I mean? But if you don't have that, it's such a tough thing to go through. So I guess obviously going back to our question about can you prepare for marriage? Yeah, I mean, Nick, you kind of answered a little bit earlier on. Curtis, I mean, can you prepare for marriage? For you, can you prepare for marriage? And I know Nick will probably want to add on that as well.
The question.
Let me just.
That little black book I see there, sir. Yeah, love it.
I think that with terminology, we have a lot of concepts and cultural concepts that really tell us preparation is this. And you know, in the West, this is the thing. In countries where they have a lot more narrow thinking, that culture dominates, and it happens here as well. But in some countries, it's just the culture is the driving force.
Yeah.
Yes, you can absolutely prepare for marriage. You are groomed that way. The culture, part of the culture, is to prepare for marriage. And so you will learn how to perform certain duties as a man or woman. Yes, but I think that when you're talking about us in the West who are more freer to explore and understand the world we live in, we've come across, we've solved a problem and we found a solution that created and solved a problem at the same time, and that is we want to have relationships. And because we are not trying to perform, because we want something that is really quite dynamic and complex, we create an avenue for a lot of conflict. So when you don't want to have a relationship, if you just want to have a culture-dominated setup, there isn't any need for conflict, and conflict won't be tolerated. That's not a relationship, but we want a relationship. So when we are talking to us in the West who are free, preparation the concept of preparation isn't about walking down the street holding hands. It's not that honeymoon phase. That is not preparation. Preparation, I think, is, and let me go straight there.
Go for it, sir.
Preparation is the moment you decide to become conscious about what time it is with you. What are you? Where are you from? What are you about? Otherwise, it's interesting. It's interesting because what I'm saying to you, I don't think makes you any more successful over time. Now, let me throw this out there. When I got married, what did I know? My concept of love has completely changed.
Wow.
My attitudes to certain things have completely changed. And so when I wonder what I did to prepare. I had a dream, I had a vision. I'm not saying it was God-given vision, it was my own vision. And so when I went into marriage, I had feelings for this woman, Juanita, and I had a belief system based on that. And I'm wondering, was that preparation? Saying that didn't carry me to this point.
Okay.
Yeah. What I felt for her then, I still feel some of it, but that alone, that's like trying to run a marathon on cornflakes. It was never gonna happen that way. So preparation, what did I do at that point? I didn't prepare. I was in a situation and I committed. Do you get me?
I'm like that
But,
as well. Yeah.
right. So I'm the kind of person I was just like, oh, get in.
Yep.
Let's see how this goes.
That's it goes. I'm all out
Right?
now.
Right. Let me shut this fire exit. Let's go.
We're all
There's
in.
no back door. We're all in.
All in.
But then again, that alone wouldn't have carried me this far.
Yeah.
So when I don't want to conclude at this point, but when I say prepare, and we're going to, I'm sure, when I say prepare, I'm saying I didn't prepare. So how did I get here?
Nicole, you might have something different to say. So I don't know. I lost something because what you might have experienced is different to what he experienced. You know what I'm saying?
This is my
might be carrying
experience,
him. The grace might be carrying him. You know what I'm saying?
This is my
I
experience.
hear
but,
it,
yeah,
and I do agree actually to a certain
Ooh.
extent. But I do still think that, and what you said was true. I think preparation is different for everybody.
Okay, I get this.
For some people, it might just be coming to the realization that this is who I am. This is what I do. This is the type of person that I am. Understanding yourself as a human being, that might be your preparation. For other people, it might be, I don't know, working on a habit, going to some seminars, dealing with your credit, dealing with this, that. I think it looks like different things for different people. So for me, I think everybody does prepare to a degree, whether that's your mindset, thinking ahead at things, thinking about even what you want your marriage to be. That's preparation, I think. I just think it just varies from person to person. Are there things that you can do to actively prepare? I think there are, but other people might disagree with me. And I'm not saying that to say that it will be smooth and fine because you've prepared and you've done that. No. It's not that. It's more inward looking, because I think one of the things that marriage forces you to do, if you're not used to doing it, is to look at yourself a lot more.
Yeah.
And to come to terms with who you are, and why you do the things that you do. Why do you have an issue with your spouse when they do that? You know, it really just shines a big old light on yourself. And I think some of those things that you might encounter in marriage, you could prepare for before you get to those stages, or start to develop the tools for how you're going to deal with it, because you don't know what's going to come up. I think every marriage has a thing. And every marriage has a big thing, has a medium thing, and has a small thing. That's what I think. And so what you can do to prepare, I suppose, is to just develop tools, develop basic tools. You know, we talked about communication. Conflict is a massive.
That's a huge.
That one is probably one of the biggest ones. I could say so much about that, but yeah, there are things we can do. There are things that we could do, but I think it varies from person to person.
See, I,
It's going to
see,
be
I agree with you
different.
so. I agree with you so much, and I think what I said in the start was your preparation begins when you become conscious of
Yeah,
knowing yourself,
I agree with that.
and so going to counseling is like it's nice, but until
Mm,
you want to know
mm-hmm.
to start dealing, until you want,
This is
Yeah,
it.
just leave it there. It's like
yeah,
nothing means nothing. You're not doing
yeah.
anything, and you could be married 10 years,
Mm,
20 years, and
mm,
be blind to yourself
This is very true.
because the other person is giving more grace than really you both deserve. Do you know what I'm saying? So
Mm,
mm. Oh boy.
mm, that
Whew,
is a
that
topic
happens a
right
lot.
there.
Yeah.
That's a topic right
whew,
there. That, do you know what's
yeah.
so interesting? I was watching a show called Black Love, and it was Bill
Mm,
and Kristen. And Kristen was like saying about how, because Bill was trying to explain that, it's about listening. And you could tell that
Bill
this guy's been
Bellamy.
trying to, yeah, he's been, I know he's been telling his wife for time, listen, listen.
listen.
And then she was like, oh, it finally clicked after 18 years. I said, 18 years, you clicked listening.
Mm,
What has been going on? You know
what were
what I
you
mean?
doing before?
What were you doing before? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and that's exactly what we're talking
Yeah.
about, is that someone could be offering this grace in these
Yeah.
areas, and it does require grace on
Yeah.
both parties to be able to complete this thing we're asking for. It's I wanted to
Yeah.
even add something interesting, because as you were talking about preparation, it made me kind of think, right? So, for instance, I study a lot of these like relationships. I study people's relationship, observe, and I found that even the more knowledge you have, the more danger you're in, because pride puffers up. You know what I mean? So once you know it, it even makes it more dangerous now, because now it's almost like you having this expectation that you can either teach that person or they should know it as well. And I think that can even
Mm,
cause you to have issues when you're going into a marriage, because as much as you know, it also makes you impatient for other people. Because as human
mm,
beings, when we know something, we are expecting that the other person should come to that level as well. So I'm not going to wait 18 years. If I think that you should understand how to listen, I'm not going to wait 18 years. I'm out the door, bruv. Do you know what I mean? So I
mm.
think what you're talking about here is something that I think maybe even is a concept that is spiritual, yet also has to be manifested physically, which is the word grace, which is if you don't know how to
Yeah,
exhibit grace, you will not complete this thing. Forget anything else, because everything else can be learned. This
yeah.
thing, if you don't exhibit it, you will die. It's just that simple. I don't know if you want to
Mm.
touch on that, Nick. You see you.
I was just going to add to that actually. I think the other thing, in addition to what you're saying, is that marriage has a funny way of teaching two people something at the same time. So
Mm,
they're trying to learn how to listen. He could
mm,
be learning patience, and it could have taken 18 years to learn patience or to take his time with his wife.
mm.
It could have been him learning how to articulate his point clearer or to
This is
actually
true.
explain, because we talk about listening, but are you explaining it in a way that the person understands? Do you have to
Mm,
develop that over time? It could have taken him 18 years to do that and her 18 years to listen. I don't know. But I think I find a lot of the situations that people find themselves in, both people are learning. Both people are learning at the same time. That's what I think. And I think that's the
mm.
beauty of how God has shaped this thing, because you're rubbing off on each other to be better people. That's really kind of what the aims. And so, like I said, one person might be struggling in one area, the other person might be struggling in another, and the both things are connected in some way. And so, going through it is there. It's a process for both people to
I love that.
navigate and learn, perhaps. But yeah, because I think a lot of people say it's the other person, it's them that has the problem, but you also have things to learn too. When people say
Mm,
to me, "Oh, I know all about that. I don't really need to know anything more," I'm very weary of people that say that, because
mm.
for me,
You are finished as far as I'm concerned.
you can always learn something, and
That is the
we are not
scariest
always
mindset I
right.
ever
It's
heard, man.
very scary, but a lot of people are like that. I don't need to discuss that because I'm good. I know about that already. Really, do you?
I've prayed about it.
Okay.
God understands where I'm
Mm,
coming on all that talk. You know what's
yeah,
funny?
Mm.
You know what's
it's
funny, Nick? When you're talking
dangerous.
about when you talk about conflict, yeah. What you
Mm.
saying? You want to charge
You
me?
better check with that. You better check before you say anything.
That's my daughter. It's my daughter. It's my
Okay.
daughter. Yeah. So what was interesting about conflict was right. I'm. This is one of my in my top 10.
Mm, 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 mm.
Right and wrong is irrelevant. And so when you're preparing for marriage and you think that you got a point, if you're one of those people that has to prove their point, right and wrong don't mean nothing in a marriage. I told you about the white ball on the floor.
I feel triggered.
I'm majorly triggered. I want to tell him to keep quiet.
I feel triggered.
Nicole, take your own advice. You have to keep quiet now.
I'm even triggered myself. I'm sure.
No, I'm only joking.
Yeah.
But am I lying, Nicole?
True.
Right. If you want to take it from here, you understand what I'm saying, innit?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
I'm not talking about you. Sorry. I'm just because listen, man. When I first started off, I got logic on lock. This is black and white. Look, can't you see it? How many years do you think it took me to work out that she sees a different set of colors? So she's like, what you talking about? So the thing now is like, we're both looking at the same thing. And let's take it even further. Let's say I'm actually right. Oh my gosh, gonna get deep. Right don't even mean anything in marriage half the time. You know why? Because it that's not it. It's how you're gonna work it out.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Especially we grew up in church. There is a way. There is just a way. And so we expect we might adopt certain culturally appropriate principles to govern how a house should run and what our wife and our husband should do things and expectations. And then it's like, hold on a minute. People change over time. My mum had me when she was 17. And then when she was when I left home, she was just like, just before I left home, she was like, and I left home at 17. I left home at 16. And she was like, I'm going to get my youth back. Sometimes people do that. And what's my point? My point is that people change. And so expectations are going to change.
Shaking.
Sometimes people are just going to be like, I hate the life I've been living. So if the other partner's sitting there and hearing that, he can either engage and say, look, how can we do this together? Or what the heck do you think you're doing? But if the other person's bent on being the way they want to be, you might be right, but right ain't going to save this marriage. How you deal with this thing is going to save it.
I've got no
this
comments,
is why we have,
by the way.
Nicole, this is why we have war, right?
No, missing me. I'm shaking.
Look at sociology. Look at the wars that are taking place. It's just a difference of opinion. It's because I feel like I'm right. This is my land. And it's like, actually, can we resolve this without shedding blood? We could, but pride will make us say, no, this is the way it's going to run. Because you know what? For both Juanita and I'm going to tell you straight. There's times when she's had to put up with my nonsense because she's thinking about it later on. She knows there's going to be bloodshed. I know there's going to be bloodshed. So I will shut my mouth to get through. Man, if you could learn that before you get married. It takes two, like not just one of you, both of you. Learn to shut up and listen. Bill Bellamy style.
Bill Bellamy style.
Yeah,
that's a tough one. That
one
that touched my soul, and then the hard drive is corrupted a little bit still. Do you know what? Can we talk about that? Because there's a part that you mentioned. I think that is where I think you can never unless you've experienced that. That's one area that I think is a black hole for a lot of us, which is the change. Because I'm a person that likes I like consistency. You know what I mean? Like I there shouldn't be a change. I should know how you're going to operate on a day-to-day basis so that I know how to flex around you. You understand? Like if I see change, I start to, and this is the deal, and this is what you're talking about, deal with yourself, right? This is to do with your attachment style. This is to deal with what you've dealt with in your youth, when you were a young kid, etc., etc. So my mindset to change is abandonment. Do you understand? So as soon as I feel that there's too much change, it's like, no, you're going to move mad. I need to constrict you back to...
You sound like Woody.
Huh? I'm just being real. Listen, I'm being serious because I can see.
You sound like Woody, bro.
You know what I'm saying? I can see, and I'm saying that in that environment, where we're in a relationship where you can duck out. You can't duck out in a marriage. You understand? So I know that there's a wall now on my back if I'm married. Do you get what I'm saying? Whereas in a relationship, I can go, you can do what you want because we are able to shift and move. When you're in a marriage, it's like we've got to make this work somehow. You know what I mean? Your back is against the wall. There is nowhere to go. So how do you deal with that change? Because that's a big thing.
When you talk about change, when you say change, like
I'm just saying in general, because people, like you said, people do change. Their mindsets of things do change. You know what I'm saying? How do you deal with over time the changes? And they can be small incremental. I don't know how it happens. This is what I'm saying, it's a black hole. I do not know how it happens, but I am aware that this happens in marriages.
But I just want to say this, right? Because you're asking me how to plaster this wall. Yeah, and really, you're gonna plaster how you're gonna plaster. I can tell you how I did it, but I don't mean that's how you're gonna do it. But I think that there are foundational principles to plus, including being a Christian principles. The same grace that you get from above is the grace that you have to impart, and so I mean, one of the dangers is that in preparation for marriage is living for yourself. Like I remember Juanita saying, when I got married, I thought I was marrying myself because I thought we were so alike. I married him because he was just perfect. And so, and then when you get in, you're like, that's not who I married, kind of thing. There's more to this guy. This guy's like, he's complicated. He thinks too much. He talks too much. He's got too much opinion. He's never wrong. He won't back down. So that's change. And you don't know what changes. Nicole mentioned earlier, you don't even know what's coming. You get married and you don't know what's coming. So what are you going to do? And it's like, you're in. What are you saying, Nick? Sorry.
I was just going to say, and the emphasis has to be on you. It's you and your adjustment to the change. That's where your focus should be, because it's going to happen. You can't prevent it. You can't prevent a change from happening. God forbid somebody has an accident and they're left with something life-threatening. What are you going to do? You have to change. You have to be able to adapt and move and change. It's inevitable. And so what you do is you make room for that. You make room. You give the person room to do that, and you also work on yourself in how you can accept a change in a situation. How you can accept.
Can I ask you a question? You said give someone room. What does that mean, and what does that look like?
That could mean not telling them what to do or how they should navigate this next part, or putting pressure on them to still do things that maybe perhaps they need to think about now, or you have to almost step out of the way and allow people to just become. You can't, because what will happen is it will have the opposite effect, and the person will have resentment that will cause another issue in your marriage, and then you're going to be left with two issues that you have to deal with, and the change still came anyway. So you might as well just take a step back and say, look, I'm willing to explore this thing with you. I don't quite understand it. And it does require honesty, because we're not expected to all of a sudden be like, okay, you changed. Okay, so no, be honest and say, I'm not quite sure about that, but I'm willing to explore this with you, because I made this commitment to us. And so I'm willing to explore this with you. I don't have the answers. I don't know, how I'm going to feel tomorrow about it, but I'm willing to give you the room to change, and I'm willing to support you. That's all you can do.
Yeah, I agree.
Because the change, it comes so often. And as women, I have to say, we're always, we might watch something on the TV and all of a sudden, we need to move this house, man. We need to get out of this house, or whatever. Like, it could be anything.
Yo, that sounds familiar.
Why don't you cut off your beard? Why you got your beard like that, man? You could see something. It unfortunately, ladies, we can be quite reactive at times. But I think what's important is that we communicate effectively, and each person just tries to understand where we're coming from. That's what I would say, I think.
I love that. And just to even get to the next point now, because I think you touched on Nick earlier on as well. You spoke about, will the partner even understand? I think you've also touched on it quite as well, about the seeing from different perception. Can we talk a little bit about communication versus the comprehension? Because I think, you know what, this is something I've just learned. Okay, like I'm a person that when I think that when I'm delivering it, I'm cold with it. Listen, you should get it. Like, I'm sorry, you should get it. I mean, scholars get it. I don't understand you don't get it, but I think to myself that you should get it. You know what I'm saying, right? And it's funny because I had a friend call me up and I explained the situation to him. He said, "Yeah, but did she understand?" I said, "I don't know how she doesn't understand because I've made it plain." You know what I'm saying? But he said, "No, but did she understand?" I said, "Bro, I don't understand how I can say it 4 or 5 times. It is plain." But you, as you were clearly saying, how do you deal with communication versus comprehension? Because I'm a person that always says communication, but you're absolutely right. I think,
It's
comprehension is the most important thing to get in that. How do you deal with that in a relationship? And how do you even arrive at that comprehension aspect as well?
You have to be patient. I'll be honest, I'm still on that journey. My husband, if he saw this, he'd be like, better tell the truth now. But yeah, I am still on this journey. But one of the things I've learned is that I need to be patient. Just just a very basic principle. I thought I was a patient person before I got married, and I found out that actually I am not. I am not patient. And every time we have communication difficulties, that's what I like to call it, it's because I'm not patient. I'm not willing to actually wait for him to comprehend. I want him to get it now, and if you don't get it, well, that's your business. That's not. Do you really care about the person then? Do you really care about what you want them to understand if you're not patient enough to allow them to comprehend it? He says things to me a lot, and I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying. I don't understand what you mean. And it's like, how many more times do I have to say the same thing? And I'm like, it's not about the times. It's just, I don't get it. And sometimes you might not get it for a while, but I think you have to remember that that is also okay, and that is normal. Some of us think that we're supposed to just get it just like that. No. We spoke about the guy who, after 18 years, like, I believe that. I pray I'm not going to be 18 years, but I believe that. Definitely. But you have to be patient. And I think as well, we talk a lot about speaking, but we don't talk much about active listening. What does it mean to be an active listener? Are you listening to respond, or are you listening to understand? Because they're completely two different things. Are you listening to what they've said to you because you want to quickly fire back with what you need to say? That means you didn't hear what they said. You need to think about active listening skills. And I remember when I was talking to these people about joining the Samaritans, they were like to me, do you know how to listen? And I thought, what do you mean, do I know how to listen? Of course I know how to listen. And they're like, no, do you know how to actively listen? And I couldn't answer the question because I was like, I don't understand what you're asking. And there's like a whole course on active listening, how you can actually have skills to actually actively listen to what people are saying, and to make people feel heard, because that's the other part of it. A lot of the conflict is because the other person doesn't feel that you've really understood or heard them. It becomes an emotional thing, especially for women. It's like, you don't understand. If you understood, you wouldn't have said that next. Like, there's a way to phrase things. There's a time and a place. There's a way to say it. There's a lot that it entails, but you've got to, I think, listen before you can speak. The Bible, what does the Bible say? It has the text.
Slow to speak.
Exactly.
Slow to speak.
Yeah, exactly. There's a reason we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. A lot of us don't listen enough. We talk too much. And I'm talking about myself included. Sometimes I just chat too much, and I need to just listen to my husband instead. So I'm still learning, guys.
It's a learning
Hopefully
process.
I'll get there soon. But yeah.
Let me just say, after the amount of time I've been married, you ain't getting nowhere. This is it. This is the journey. But I wanted to throw something on it as well. Like, recently, this is the other side of active listening. Recently, when it was like, so are you going again? I won't give you the actual account, but I'll try and break it down to you in skeleton as best I can. Are you going again? I was like, yeah, I have to. Okay, next day, she said, are you going again? So I was like, yeah, I told you the other day. The next day, she said, so you're going again? Okay. So in my head now, I'm like, I've answered you 3 times already. The same answer. So I said, what are you really asking?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Do you get me?
Mm.
We're going through this again. And this is something that's featured in not that event, but this I've caught on to, because I'm a kind of person, I don't like to repeat cycles. And something that frustrates me is if we're still arguing about the same thing for 10 years, which can happen. Yeah. Which for us has happened in certain things as well. Why are we arguing about it again? And it's like, with this particular thing, it was a classic example of, so I said, what are you really asking me? And she said, but I'm asking you straight. Can you just answer the question? So I said, yeah, but I have. But I'm just wondering, because you're asking so many times, I'm asking if there's something else that's the issue. And sometimes the other person doesn't know hasn't articulated deeper what they're really thinking. And then what might have been an argument years back was a discussion today, which was, tell me what you mean when you say da 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 da.
Yeah.
The question still wasn't answered at that point. And I said, yeah, I know you said, but tell me what you mean. And then she was like, she paused and went, what I mean is, so that took 4 days. 4 days, 19 years of marriage. Now, some people can do it better, but some people might not even get to that stage. But understand, you have to be, like you said, bro, like scriptures is so right. Solomon knows what he's talking about. Try not to speak so quickly and think about another way to resolve this thing.
Yeah.
Nicole, is there another way? Kojo, is there another way that we can resolve this? Because what happened last time isn't working. Now, don't get me wrong, they may be at fault, but I still have some power over the situation. What have I not said, or what have I not heard? You have to keep asking yourself that, no matter how right you feel. Because this is why, another reason why being right is irrelevant, because when you're communicating, I think in psychology, they say that when there's communication from one person to another, if there's any interference, it's noise. It becomes noise. And noise is an inaudible. So you can't make sense of it until it's comprehended, right?
Yes,
so it's that bridge. So what comes out of my mouth and goes to your ears, then also has to be challenged by your personal experiences. It has to be challenged by your wiring and your belief systems, your preconceived ideas, before you processed it and said, I understand what you're saying. And this is why when you then go back to saying, you have to deal with yourself, because a man will just say, oh, you look nice in that. What's that supposed to mean?
Oh my God.
And what did they hear? Do you know what I mean? That you didn't say anything wrong.
Yeah.
But the responsibility is still mine to clear up the noise. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not like, it's not all on the person who's damaged. And the thing is, like we said last week, we're all going to marry broken people. We're all messed up here. So guarantee you're going to get me wrong at some point. But I'm here like, okay, let me try and fix this. What I meant was, now, boy, you might have them raised the dead already. You might have raised Cain on that already, and people might be throwing pots at you, but you still got a responsibility to just do the best you can.
Yeah.
Whole meal there, isn't it?
Yeah, whole meal. I think there's a lot to this thing. I think there's a lot to it. I think one of the things that okay, let me think about how to say this. There's a lot of weight in how it's communicated, and I don't always think we give enough attention to that. My husband knows I can be quite feisty. Something that I've realized. So, you know, depending on how I say something,
I would never have guessed that. You know that. I would never.
Really?
I've seen you around for years. Nah. You wear it too. I know Nicole.
It's all the nice ones.
Let me tell you.
My husband knows I'm very feisty when I'm ready. But you have to be conscious. That's all I'm going to say. You have to be conscious of your mannerisms, your facial expressions, which I get told a lot, and just how you communicate. We all communicate. Some people use their hands, some people use their body, you know. Be conscious, because some of these things can be triggers for other people. And if you really want to get your point across, or you really want the person to comprehend or understand what you're saying, you have to be conscious of how you're conveying it to them. Yeah. And the second thing is the timing. The timing of when you drop those bombs is so crucial. Like if you're on your way to a nice meal,
that's not
you
the
know,
time to drop the bombs.
that's not the time to talk about, you know, the clothes should have been washed and why didn't you do that? You know, because the meal then is going to just be like
Ruined.
everybody's going to be annoyed. Like, do you have to speak about it at that time? Can you not just wait? Like, let's just have the meal and then, you know, go back. My husband is probably thinking you do that all the time, but it's something that I'm working on.
You're working on, man.
Time and season, I hear you.
I know that I do it. I know it annoys him. So I suppose sometimes I do it to wind him up. But yeah, I've admitted it. But yeah, the timing of something is so crucial. Be careful of that. You know, people say that people getting ready for church in the morning, they have their most arguments on a Sabbath morning. For some couple, like for some reason, Sabbath morning or church morning, there's always arguments. Why? Why does it have to be that morning? Like, it's just a standard thing.
Because the Holy Spirit went to church ahead of you. That's why, man.
You have to think of this. Is what I'm saying. You have to think about what steps led to that, and you have to think about how did I contribute to that? Because it's not always the other person. What did I do?
You know what some of that is that a lot of the time it's because we're performing for people. Juanita and I went through that for years. Because what it is, you know, I remember we used to get up, because we used to get to church for 9:30 in our church, 9:30ish. Yeah. Well, I wanted to get to church for 9:30. That's what and
beefing itself.
Because I was an active member. I was teaching and playing the music, right? So it's like I have to be there. And I wanted to be there, and I wanted my family there. Not for God, for the people. For me to feel good, like we were doing something. And what was happening was she's moving a bit slower than me, or she's finding things to do that are just
don't need to do it now.
For you, wasn't necessary at the time,
brother. For me, it wasn't necessary. The white ball, right? It's just the white ball, right? For her, she's seeing this beach ball with colours on it, but she's seeing things to do. And one day she said to me, "Can you help me?" I'm like, "Oh, sugar, all right." So I started to help her, still leaving home the same time. So then I started to go by myself, and that was then again a greater division in the family. And then she'd come down, because we were spending all 3 hours getting ready for church. Like, who does that now? Who needs to do that? I'd get to church before her, then I'd see her, because I'm sometimes either preaching or teaching or playing the music, and then I wouldn't even see my family properly, wouldn't connect. And this is all in the name of God. And church life is destroying your family secretly. You know, we dress up very well, don't we? The makeup and the suits and that, and it's like that. Let me tell you, man. Let me tell you. And so we're arguing because we're trying to look good for something, man. Like the dream. You're interfering with my dreams here. Like, let's get ready for the big show. Destroy my family.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot in that. There's a lot that people have people sacrifice just for image and just for things to look a certain way. I was the same. I had to do praise and worship, so I need to be there on time. My husband's quite chilled out, so I just started leaving him behind and getting to church. Sometimes I didn't know if he was going to make it or if he was going to come, but I just had to be there. Yeah, I thank God for COVID. Thank you, Lord, for the pandemic, but it's true. Can you imagine how many people's marriages it saved? Let's be honest. There could be quite a few people who don't have that argument anymore on a Sabbath or you know, whatever day they go. Yeah, you have to prioritize what's important, and the image is not at all.
I didn't know. You see, this is the kind of stuff that you don't really. You see, this is what I'm saying. You don't get this stuff. You know what I mean? You know this stuff. You understand? I would know why the pastor's face is hard flint. Yeah, I'm saying he left his wife behind. You understand now? get me?
Yeah,
But these
it's
are
true.
but this is what we're saying. This is, I think, obviously, just a small diver. I think this is why I believe that church needs community, because I think once you take it away from the structure of it being this institution that we are doing structures and roles, and look at it as we are doing something for God and we're a community and a family, I think that pressure side of things kind of goes down, because now it's like, yo, let me tell you, man, I'm a little bit annoyed today. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna lie to you guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, you might say that, whereas now, because you're at the pulpit, you can't say you're annoyed, but you, the way you preaching, we can tell a little bit of energy coming from you. We
It's
feeling
true.
what you felt, whatever happened last night. Do you know what I
Feeling
mean?
the effect.
Yeah. So I do understand that as well. I do understand that as well. I guess obviously I'm even just kind of saying another question, I guess. What are, do you know what, it's interesting because we spoke about, I think someone touched upon it, about kind of compromise aspect, and this is one question someone actually asked me. It is compromise versus sacrifice. How do we know in a marriage, because now it's not a relationship, it's a marriage, how do we know when something's a compromise and it's a damn sacrifice? You know what I'm saying? Because the two are different. You know what I'm saying? You sacrifice, you bleeding. As the compromise is to a middle ground. So how do you maneuver that?
You know what?
Oh,
It's a heavy one. Take time.
Sacrifice. I'm not going to try and define them because they mean different things to different people. But
yeah, I agree.
I always say to people, like, your most cherished. It's like because I used to work in natural health. I used to have consultations with people about their ailments. Okay, and one of the paths as a naturopath to health is to fix what you eat. And there was always one question in the list of about 15 questions, and that was, what are you prepared to do to get well? And I would get one of two answers. And the answers would determine whether I knew I could work well with this person or not. More often. So one answer would be, it depends on what you suggest. Yeah. So that, what if I said, well, you got to drink bitters?
Yeah.
They'd be like, nah. I've had people say, nah, I'm not doing it. I'm like, that's what there is. What are you going to do? Or you have to give up something. Yeah? So I'm trying to show them. So then the other answer I would get would be, whatever it takes. Yeah. And that would tell me that those people will just move through the program real quick and get the results real quick.
Yeah.
Me, as though the support, the guidance, the counselor would compromise sometimes, depending on how flexible they were, to say, I will then do this for you and that for you if you do this small thing. You don't have to do the big one, you could do the little one. And so I see compromise as a process of working with someone at their stage of where they're at. Because people change, or things that there's not even change. Sometimes people are revealed. Like, I'm 44. I just learned certain things about myself last year, and it's affecting how I'm moving right now. So when we're talking about how we're going to make this marriage work, Juanita now has to give me, Nicole said it, space, which means that at times she's going to have to carry more weight whilst I'm dealing with my mess. So she's compromised herself for our survival. Whereas I could have said, bun this stupid attitude. My mum hurt me when I was a kid. I'm moving on now. Then I will sacrifice my pride or my trauma or the way that I'm thinking, the way I'm wired. I can throw that on the fire. Some people can do that sometimes. Or Juanita might have to say, do you know what? My husband's been permanently traumatized. Therefore, I'm going to give up any hope of getting this or getting that so that we can stay together. So I think compromise is, I'm sorry to kind of answer it all, Nicole.
No, it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So compromise, I would say, is what the Bible calls long suffering, patience.
That is a word right there.
Which is for me the greatest word in the whole of the Bible is long suffering, is that thing. And then sacrifice is, what are you prepared to give up to make this work?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like for example, like I play piano, and there's been piano's my thing, what I do to wind down on the weekend. And when that's not there, my weekend's not the same. And I've done that for decades now. Because we were short on money years back, I sold my piano for years. I did have a piano. I did that for the family. That's sacrifice, isn't it? We do these things for apparently the greater good. And that again also was my compromise. Oh my gosh. So I'm just sitting there like, some of us are gonna have to, and the thing is, some of us are gonna have to give up a lot more than we planned forever. There's no date on it. Do you know what I mean? Let me stop there, man. It's just.
I agree with that. Definitely. Yeah. For me, I just see compromise as things that are more temporary than a sacrifice. Sacrifice for me is a lot more permanent than compromise. So I do agree with what you're saying. Definitely. That's probably how I would differentiate between the two. But yeah, it's a lot, because you are going to have to sacrifice some things. And are you okay with doing that? Is that something that you are going to be okay with, or are you going to rub it in the person's face for the next 20 years of the marriage? Because for me, then that's not a sacrifice. That's like a guilt thing there. But yeah, it's complicated. But yeah, I see compromise more of a temporary thing. Sacrifice is usually, not always, but usually something more permanent.
I think I brought up last week. Some people, in order to be with the one that they love, might have to sacrifice their economic status. Do you know what I mean? When you get married, when you're married, it's different. It's like, you got a great guy or a great woman, and then you're like, if we get married, we're gonna struggle economically. I want a kid. You have a child, and it's like, when you're on, man, we took an economic hit. Man, we took an economic hit with our firstborn. Then the second one came. It was like, okay, that was the first one we thought was death economically, but we made it. And then the second one came, and it was like, okay, because when you're in the moment, you have babies. They're there to be had. They're easy to come. To make a baby is just a thing. But economically, it was like, whoa,
they cost so much,
bro. You know what? Babies don't cost so much. You lose the ability to make. Do you get me? It impedes what you make. The babies don't even cost much, in the first few years. It's just, thank God when Primark came into the country, it was like, it was just full of people. So, your baby clothes don't cost nothing, but, and then the third one came, and that was like, how are we going to do this? Now, that was a sacrifice. It's like you just say, you know what, we're going to do this together. And so it's not just having children, but sometimes marrying someone can drag you down. But if you're humble enough, you could say, I don't care. We'll do it together. We'll be all right, So I would say sacrifices is all right for some people until you talk about money.
I was going to say that.
Go on, sorry.
No. That's what I was going to say that. Yeah. Nick, do you want to touch on that?
Money. Yeah, where do I start with that one? I think, it's very complicated. It's a complicated situation. I'm just thinking how to navigate what I'm going to say next.
Take time.
When you're married, I think a lot of people don't realize that you have to discuss the financial side of things before you're married, because you need to kind of understand that person's approach to money just in general. Otherwise, you can have some quite quite huge shocks and stresses. And then if you have kids on top of that, it can just really spiral out quite quickly. I know a lot of people say that a lot of marriages end because of financial situations, but I think it all really boils down to communication. You need to communicate with the person. I've got friends who are completely separate. They don't share anything. They give half of what they need for the bills. They're married, yeah. They don't look at what that person earns at all.
Amazing.
They just keep everything separate, but they're married, you know. They have a joint account they pay into, but nobody looks at what each individual person does. That might work for you, but that's not something that we wanted for our marriage. We wanted to be able to be clear about where we were financially. For me, it was, you know, what's mine is yours. When we first got married, I actually earned a lot more than my husband. He didn't have an issue with that. He didn't make me feel any kind of way about that. And we supported each other. I just felt like we're in this together.
God bless you.
You know, we're together, basically. And it was very difficult at the beginning. In our first year, his mom passed away 2 months after our wedding. So we had a wedding to pay for, and then we had a funeral to pay for 2 months later, which we did not foresee or plan for or save for or nothing. It was stressful. I was the only person working at the time. We had to make it work. We just had to make it work.
So wait, now, was he working before you got married?
He was working before, yeah. But because of the death of his mom, it just completely knocked him.
Yep. This is the real thing.
When I say knocked him completely out, we were only married for 2 months. 2 months, and she went. And he completely I don't know if he'll agree with me or not, but I think it really disorientated him, because if you imagine you've lived your life a certain way for 7 years, and you've known this person, you're very close. He had such a close relationship with his mum. And so when she did pass, it was almost like, who am I? Like, what's happening? You know, and then you've got the grief and how he grieves, and, you know, but we're married, you know, we still need to communicate. There were days we didn't speak at all because he couldn't talk. There was a lot that happened. But for me, I just felt financially, we could afford for him not to work. You know, it was, thank God, it was okay for us. And so I appreciated the fact that he didn't bring any ego into it. He didn't try to control anything. He respected it. He was grateful. He was supportive, you know, whatever I needed to do, because he recognized that I was having to carry things right now, so that he could really basically grieve for as long as he needed to. And sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you have to adapt. You have to change. Things come and knock you off course, and you're like, whoa, how did I get here? But financially, you've got to try and be secure, in the sense that you both need to understand what the other person is bringing in and how they're going to be contributing, and also like their spending habits and styles and things like that. That's important as well. But yeah, there's a lot more that could be said.
Really
but,
deep.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah,
that's really deep. You know what? Thank you for sharing that as well, Nick, as well. And the reason why I'm saying thank you for sharing that is because I think that is something that I believe the new generation, including my generation potentially as well, is going to have a virus with. Okay, when I say virus, they are infected with an idea that, you know, this thing can't happen. Like, someone can't suddenly not be working, and one person may potentially have to hold it down for a little while. And especially if, for instance, I do a lot, because a lot of my shows are with American, so a lot of the audience might be American here. The idea, which is, it's slightly different from UK. I think UK, we have a different way of dealing with finances, relationship, everything like that. But like, when I look at the American market, and I see, obviously, the American market affects a lot of, like, social media now affects a lot of people's understanding of what relationships are. And it's like the idea that this man better work, and if it doesn't work, and at any moment he stops working, it's over. Right? And it's like, in a marriage, you don't know what can happen. Like you were just saying, you don't know what can happen. So if you go into it,
people forget somebody could be ill, and like, what are you gonna do? They need to get up from the bed and work. That's not gonna happen. It's not gonna cut it. Somebody could have to go care for a sick parent.
They're not yet. This is it. They're not working.
Yeah.
They become depressed. They get injury. They like you said, they gotta go. And it's like not
Self-esteem, they
only
become low.
all
It's
of
a
this
lot.
happens. I've been through most of these things I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
and then when we end up in certain public places or online, no one can see it, but it's happening. And I'm letting you know. I'm letting you know that Juanita has watched me go through some stuff.
Yeah.
She's watched me go through some stuff, and whatever we're weak at, we are strong at pulling it together.
Yeah.
We go through conflict. We have gone through challenges, death, debt, all kind of things, man. Being sold out, being set up, all kind of things. And you know what? She pulled it. What my wife did not do is make me feel like you're an idiot or you're weak. You know, it's like I never ever in the back of my mind felt, oh no, go and be with someone else because I can't do it for you. She stuck it out right there. And I'm like, when you go through those things that you described, Nicole, you're a great example of we're gonna do this. Because you have to still look after and love someone, which is not the same thing. Look after and love. I'm the woman, because we're black people, we've got certain kind of old school.
This is the thing. Yeah.
But what you did was you went to work, you came home, and I thank God for Jermaine. I know Jermaine, he don't mind us talking about this. I'm guessing because he's quite open. Is that fair to say? Still, he's completely open. So it's like you go out to work, you come home, the relationship isn't moving, it's a bit stagnant, there's traumas and there's issues there, and you're still going out to work and coming home and looking after. Let me tell you, there's an example of preparation.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Preparation won't save you on this one.
This is the thing. It won't.
There's not. What counselling can you get for this?
Exactly. But they might not even want to go to counselling. My husband didn't want to go to counselling. He didn't want to do that, and I refused to force him to do that because I just think that's not the way to be. That's not the way to be. We had no idea what was going to happen from day to day or what was going to happen next. Some days, like I said, we weren't even speaking. I just make the food, put it there. If you want to eat it, it's fine. Give you space. Wow. And then I struggled with that too. Some days I was just like, man, I was supposed to be married. Like, what's going on? You know? And I had to like think. Like it was a lot. And there was nothing beforehand that would have ever prepared either of us for that.
Nothing.
However, in saying that, I remember when my husband, we first got together, he was like, if we do this marriage thing, there's no divorce. Like we're in this thing to the end. Like he was just very adamant about that. So already in my head, I was entering it knowing that I'm not coming out of this thing. And so I'm going to make sure that I have to work it out. I have to work it out. I love what Juanita and Curtis say, stay the course. You gotta sometimes you just gotta work out. You have to. Sometimes you're not talking, okay, don't talk, but next week, you know, you have to find a way to work it out, to make it. It's hard and it will be difficult, it will be challenging. Please don't think that you're not gonna have obstacles, you will. The very things that you might even be fearful of will come up. But you have to try your best to stick this thing out. And it really does develop your character, your resilience, the type of person you are. And your marriage becomes a lot more solid. It's just a completely different thing. I say we've been married for 3 years, but I feel like we've been married for years because of what we've gone through already in 3 years. You know, so there's a method to it all. And you just have to try and stick it out as best as you can.
I remember when I sitting around the table numerous times throughout the 20 years we've been together, and we just looked at each other and just said, "There's no money." We've got a budget sheet in Excel, and we've looked at it, and at times it's like we're in the red, and we haven't done, and food is not even on that. You know, like, oh gosh, I'm not going to be able to. We knew that direct debits would fail. And when it just looked at me and we looked at each other and was just like, all right, we're gonna have to cancel some direct debits. Cool. You do this, I do that. She didn't leave. She didn't throw nothing up. You know something?
Yeah.
Those things, people, listen, if God is a showman, I think I said this last week, if God is a showman, like this is what you're gonna go through. I would have said, I wouldn't
No
enter,
way.
number one. And number two, I would have said on the grounds of, I will not make it.
Yeah.
I won't make this relationship. We are going to be unhappy. We're going to split up. We're going to throw it. We're going to say things. No, this has made us. You understand? It's done the opposite, right?
Yeah.
It's done the opposite. Like when you look back,
Yeah.
Nicole, over some of the stuff that happened in the earlier stages, probably when you're there, you'd be like, what the heck is going on? This isn't right. This is good. This is not going to work. But then when you look back now, you're like, this made us. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it definitely did. We're in a different
space now.
Time frame. We're just in a completely different place that we would never have been had this not happened. As sad as the situation was, and as disappointed as we were, even in God, like, you know, did it really have to go this way for us to become who we are now, or for us to be where we are now? Just like you said, if he'd showed me that before, I would have said, nah, I don't want that. Can you find another way? But again, I wouldn't be the person I am now. Yeah, everything has its purpose. I hate to say cliches, but it is really true. Everything has its purpose. It really does. And sometimes you won't realize it immediately. It will take some time for you to understand that. But that's the reality.
Beautiful. There's some questions that have come through. I just asked the audience if they got any questions. One of the questions was, and I think this is a real question. And I think, Curtis, you can speak. I think man to man, we can speak about this a lot, because I think the financial aspect thing is a huge burden on the neck of any man. You know what I mean? Like, you ain't running from that. So someone asked here, how do you deal with being broke in that situation? How do you deal with that? And I think I want to angle her question as well, as in, how do you deal with that as a man? Because I think as a woman, I get it. Yes, you're in a relationship, but the society pressure of a man expected to provide, it's on your neck. You understand? How do you deal with that? What mindset do you have to put yourself into? Like, how do you overcome that?
It's a good question.
Let me give you a little backdrop.
Do you know what, guys? I felt so bad when I asked. I said, because I know this is we're gonna have to do a separate one, a proper one. Yeah, go on. Dude, because I know the story, so go through.
We're gonna have to look. You know, when you're looking at, if I look at me, it's gonna be bad, because things have happened to us because of me. Not that I was, doing evil, but because I made mistakes, which really did have a mad effect on our family, which I'm still paying for today. So I want you to understand that you have to rewire for survival's sake. You know, like if someone dropped you in the middle of the forest, either you're gonna live or you're gonna die. And you could say, I'm not eating that. I remember back in the day, we were struggling. It was like, boy, we're gonna have to go Lidl, because Lidl just came out. Lidl's only been around for a few years, right? And I remember when it was like, nah, I'm not eating it from Lidl. We do Tesco's. Yeah, that's it. Let me tell you, one day Lidl arrived for us, and it's like it's like to survive, I'm gonna have to eat this thing that's been rolling in the dirt for a couple of days, in the hope that I'll have a better tomorrow. So you have to do things here to survive. And that meant, understand what my situation was, right? I've spent as much time as an at-home dad as I have been working. That's been tough. Masculinity on the floor. All that on the floor. And it does have that effect. What helped, 50% of that was never having that rubbed in my face, because we did what we had to do to survive. And the other thing was I had to rewire. Bro, you know what I had to do? I had to get clever and become entrepreneurial. So it's like one thing that's helped us in the past particularly, and is starting to help us now so more so, is that, and even for people in COVID, in this season of COVID, I'm just encouraging you to get creative. And that's what it did. That level of adversity, that financial weight on me, made me say, instead of just curl up in a corner, I was like, right, what can be done. And back then there was no social media when this was killing us. You get me? So what could a man do? But I trained as a health therapist, and that's how we did the shopping. Because I'm like, I had an idea, and I was like, instead of being down, I'm gonna go and chase an idea. And sometimes that put food on the table. I used to make hair oil. I labeled it up, and I used to sell that, and that used to put bread on the table. That used to, when the bills, there were times when outgoings and income was the same. So what about food now? And it's like, okay, I drive. I'm a driver now. I drive for an agency. I'm making enough money just to do shopping for the week. You understand? Like, I did something, and a lot, obviously, when you're trying to do your own little hustle, 99% failure, isn't it? 9 times out of 10 is failure. But I pushed, and certain things have worked, and some things haven't. But I just sat down sometimes and just thought, what can I do? And I just chased a dream. So that kind of helped me survive, because the thing that would get me down, especially with my personal self, is if I don't have my hands doing something, I feel low. So I have to go in my notebook. I go in my notebook. I've always got a notebook somewhere, and I just write my ideas down. I got my notes on my phone. You got my phone now, you'll see my ideas. I've got ideas. Like, if I don't have my hand or in something, I'm gonna feel low. And it's a dream, but I'm gonna chase it. So that is one piece of advice that I've used for me. Yeah, I think I answered.
Okay, I'm gonna flip it to Nick. I don't know how much you can give us, Nick. Obviously, like I said, we want to keep it PG in terms of the fact that obviously we don't out no one's partners. But I mean, for yourself, I mean, because obviously he gave us a perspective of the man. We understand that, and obviously the man, I can identify that. As the woman on that side, what were the kind of pressures that you were facing? This is not about anyone else, but just as a woman, how were you able to deal with the pressures that you might have been facing? Even your expectations at that point, because like I said, we all come with expectations, how we want a relationship to be. When you were faced financially in that situation, how did you get yourself into a mindset to be able to cope with that dynamic where it's slightly changed from the normal traditional kind of system in that place as a woman?
I had to just get with the program. Life was calling, and the situation was more important at the time than my feelings. And that is another thing in marriage, that sometimes you have to put your feelings here and the situation here, and you have to be able to pivot between the two. Now, I'm not saying that your feelings are important. I'm just saying sometimes they have to be placed somewhere so that you can navigate. I had to just do what I needed to do for us to survive. It was as simple as that. My husband was hurting. He was in pain. He was grieving. For me, the priority was that he didn't have to worry about anything else, but he could just take his time to grieve. Because, if he had to be thinking about the weight of paying for this and that and blah, blah, like, that would kill anybody, that would break anybody down. And I also know that there are some things in life that are temporary. There are some things that you go through that are not going to last forever. They're momentary. And you just have to crack on with what you have to do at that moment and keep moving forward. I tried to communicate a lot. I made sure he was aware of what was happening. And I still included him in decisions, even though it wasn't his money. So sometimes people use money as power or as control. But just because it was coming technically from my salary, it doesn't mean he doesn't have an input in the decision or where that money goes. And so you have to communicate. You have to communicate. And that was one of the ways that I was able to stay grounded. I was able to stay humble and to really support my husband. But we communicated about what we were going to pay for and when and how it was going to happen, so that he felt part of the process. And I wasn't just running around doing all this stuff behind his back. He was included in it as well. I would probably say that was probably one of the main things, just communicating as much as possible and not just running off and doing what I wanted to do. It was a we thing, not an I thing.
Telling.
So yeah.
I love that. I love that. That is a beautiful answer as well. I love that. And I think many of our generation can hopefully hear that and learn from that, because I think that's a
Yeah.
key thing.
Yeah.
And I think this is what we're talking about. This is the realities of life
Yeah.
in marriage. Things
Yeah.
do go differently to how we imagined it to be. So I appreciate that as well. I guess we're heading into the last few minutes, so I'm going to give it like 5 minutes. We've got some questions here. Minute.
Okay.
The questions are going
Okay.
to on a minute
A
max
minute.
answer.
Okay.
Minute max
Right.
answer. Okay.
Try.
Try and give a minute max answer. I'll give grace where I can. Okay.
Okay.
I will give it where I can. So we'll go into that time. So the first question we have here is from ML. She says, how do you manage anger in marriage, especially in the area of guarding your words? Either one of you can take it, but please a minute, and I will be timing it.
Get some help. Seek
Mhm.
some therapy. But also the other person has a responsibility to set the standard of what they expect. So if you don't want them to use certain words to speak to you, you need to tell them that, so that it's very clear. You need to have that. You need to be on the same page when it comes to respecting each other with your words. Some people don't mind swearing and cussing and whatever. Other
Not for
people
me.
can't stand that. They're not going to be down for that. And so if you're not clear about those things, certain arguments could escalate far greater than they need to be, because the other person is just not realizing you weren't brought up like that, and that's not what you expect. So speak very clearly at the beginning before you get into an anger situation. That's the other key. Don't wait until the situation to discuss it. Try and speak about it before. But if the person is really struggling with anger, they do need to seek some therapy. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Appreciate that.
I was going to throw this on it. I was watching John Gottman. This is the guy I was trying to remember his name last week. John Gottman, right? They've got a very intuitive survey on predicting outcomes in marriage. One of the greatest predictors for divorce, is contempt. So when you disrespect your partner. So people who have anger problems, like Nicole said, and don't get help, they are basically headed toward divorce. And if you're religious, then you are headed towards an unhappy marriage forever. Let me just leave that there.
Wow. We love that. Wow. Okay. Love both of the answers there. Next question is, how do you set boundaries with family being involved in your marriage and relationship? Especially if you know what, African Caribbeans, we know about this. So please, how do you set those boundaries? You know, with that one auntie that want to tell you everything, you know. Anyway, carry on. Yeah. So how do you set the boundaries, guys? Yeah.
I told a brother the other day, man, the same thing. I said to him, bro, this is your marriage. That's it.
It's yours. Yeah.
You know what? People telling you what to do, they need to show me their happy marriage first. Then I might listen. But until I don't want any more single people who can't hold a relationship, should I say. I don't want your advice anymore.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah. You might have something good to say, but don't tell me how to have a happy marriage unless you're being real. But no, you're not in my marriage, man. Let me set a precedent right now. That's it.
And I would the only thing I would add to that is just be consistent. Just be consistent. Whatever decision you make about what you're going to do, you need to talk between each other, but don't double back and then call your friend when he's arguing with you and you're shouting at the phone, cussing him out, telling them about you. Be consistent, because a lot of people who are family members are really only involved because of what you tell them. If you don't tell them anything, then they only are left to assume and to think up things. But if you have conversations with them about stuff, then you can't really fault them for coming and asking you, did you get that sorted out? Did you get that? You know, like,
true.
You have to be careful. They're only informed by what you tell them. So be conscious about what you say and how you say it. I'm not saying, don't talk to, good family members about things, but just be conscious that what you do say,
more information,
that person, you're going to make up with your husband. They may not, based on what you've told them. So just be careful and conscious about what you say, but also it will be challenging. I struggled at the beginning with my mum, definitely. She would call me maybe twice a day. Now we've had to try and quiet that down a little bit. That involves not answering the phone, quite practically. and calling her back the next day and saying, you know, you okay? Was there an emergency? No, I just wanted to speak to you. Okay, that's great. Thanks. You've definitely got to enforce it yourself and stick to it.
But I guess you'd have to add on the get ready to make some enemies as a last resort.
Friends.
Yeah, them too. You know,
definitely.
the question is, how do you set boundaries? And it's like, look, sometimes if they're not getting their message, just be very direct and don't be afraid to make enemies. It's either you're married, you're married now, man. Don't destroy your marriage for people like that.
It's true.
There's another question here. I don't know if any of you can speak to this. I don't know. But this is the question. Have either of you experienced marriage with a partner with kids from a previous relationship? If not, don't worry, we'll put it in the memory bank and we'll come again.
I've got a couple. I've got a blended family that we did an interview with. So a couple of times. So we will try and get one of them or a couple of them on the show.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be
I haven't had a marriage. I was in a relationship with somebody, but that's slightly different. But
how was that dealing? Okay, if you ask from that perspective, just get a little bit of light.
It was challenging, and I realized it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. I think we need to not kid ourselves. And again, this goes back to watching films and movies where everything works out fine in the end. I think there are some people that it is just not for them, and there's nothing wrong with that. It can be a sad situation, but sometimes it's just not for you. I think for some people it really is, and for some people it isn't. And I think a lot of relationships or marriages could have been saved if people were honest about that from the beginning.
It's no joke, man.
That's just no what I'm not trying to be rude to anybody's relationship, but you really need to know what you can do for yourself. And if you can work with something. If you cannot, don't pretend. Do not pretend, because you will damage yourself, the person, and kids who are going to be in that mix as well. It's a sad one, but you have to be honest.
I like that perspective. Just a few more questions. Another question here. Did you guys date your partners before marriage, and what effect did or didn't it have on your marriage?
Did we date? What does that mean?
I mean, like, I guess go out and before you know, some people just get the whole 2 months and we date and we end up married. So, like, did you guys date? You know, some people are quick.
We definitely dated. Yeah.
Okay.
We definitely dated. We broke up as well.
Wow.
We broke up, and I remember I said to my husband, you know what? Like, if this is meant to be, it will happen. I know. I hate it as well. And I'm like, if this is meant to be, then it will happen. But what I also said to him is that if love is a principle, then you work at this thing. We're not going to like each other every day or all the time.
I love that.
But because love is the principle of this thing, it means that we need to work at it.
I love that.
And then we got back together and got married. So that
was close.
One day you would tell that story.
It was close, but can I just say, like, a lot of people fear breakups, but sometimes they are a blessing because it forces you to think. It forces you to think and strip all the airfare stuff that surrounds things, and really think about the relationship and the foundation that you have or need to build on. And I think ultimately most relationships go through a period of, you know, make or break, I would say. I don't know, maybe not every marriage. I think most people can say there was a time where they're like, but yeah.
I'm hearing you that. Okay, I hear that. Did you want to add to that, Curtis? Are you good?
Very quickly. Yeah, we dated for about 11 months, and then 11 months, and then we got married.
Beautiful.
Did it have an effect? I don't know how to answer that bit. I'm being honest.
You won't know.
I'm not sure what that means.
Unless you're married and divorced and married again, maybe.
You know.
Maybe.
I would say that dating multiple partners, like being unintentional about your dating, is really a fast track to destroying your future. But if you're with someone, you say, "This is what I want to be my wife, and I'm going to do things a certain way." Intentional is a big, maybe a topic for one day.
That is a big.
We write that down for you. Yeah, that's a topic.
You know why, innit? Because you're looking at, like, I'm going to date her, see how it goes. There, man, it's just sexy. You're looking for free milk.
But this is the thing. Yeah, this is the thing. Where are you going? You get into this thing, but where are you heading to? You just flying around each other. Or
dating is
like
from
is
what I
it
know,
there
dating is a
for?
dangerous game. It's like courtship is the one. Like, actually, let me see if I want to.
Intention.
My plan. I've been watching this girl.
Mm,
I'd like to marry this girl. Let me see how she rolls. We go out,
mm.
go out with the mates, and you do your thing. But yeah, anyway, yeah.
I like that. I like that. I think
Mm.
there's two more questions, and it's a question here. Apparently, the way that a man treats his wife is extremely important. How does one honor their wife but not be a doormat? Mm.
Well, first of all, I'd say being a doormat's not attractive. So,
Mm.
I mean, you need to. I don't know how those two
Not to
things.
everybody. Not to everybody. Come
No,
on.
being a
Some
doormat
of
is
you girls love
attractive.
a little doormat. Some of you girls love a
Being
little
a
doormat.
doormat is
Because
attractive.
you're
No,
dominant.
sir.
So, mhm.
No.
Everyone's got their thing.
Maybe
Some
it's a
ladies
different
are
word.
alpha.
Maybe it's a different word. Ah,
Oi. There's some things out there,
this is a
Oh
good
man.
topic, though. This is a good
Uh,
topic.
Mhm.
yeah,
The
courtesy
way
of
that
that.
a man treats his wife. I mean, it's important.
How does man
Mm,
honor his wife without being like not? I guess, but not be a
how's
doormat.
that?
I guess it's like how do you celebrate your wife as much without becoming that guy? You know, that guy that just
Be that guy. Be that
no. But
guy for
there's
your
a limit,
wife.
I guess, for some people, isn't it? For some people, there's a limit. Like if you do it too much, they feel like maybe they will be used or abused in that sense. You know what I mean? This is what
You,
happens.
you, you know, you know what's interesting? When I look at the question,
Mm.
how does one honor their wife but not be a doormat? That sounds like a female asking that question
Mm,
because they can't tell the difference between
mm,
Mm.
a wife that is maybe kind of subservient or servient,
mm,
a servant-like nature, not being recognized as doormats. I think that there isn't any middle. So what they see is someone who's either really loose or
okay.
someone who's a doormat. The in between
Mm,
is what we want, and I think that that gap again, the culture really does.
do a
I
disservice.
wouldn't be surprised. I'm making assumptions. This question is denotes someone who comes from a culture dominated type of
Mm,
situation where women just serve their men and do as they're told. And you probably haven't seen anything in between in reality.
mm,
To be honest with you, you're seeing that here.
mm,
No much less with Nicole, who's she and Jermaine are very open about their relationship. And there is the possibility, because that's not a relationship,
mm.
Mm.
right? It's not a relationship, it's a partnership, which is good in itself. But if you want a relationship, you have to be able to see the in between. It's so like there's some kind of abuse in there somewhere, like because I heard
Mm.
this the other day from someone
That's
who's just
interesting.
a number of people who are in abusive situations, but it's based around their faith as Christians,
Mm.
and so
Mm.
they're using the religion to oppress their women
Oh,
as
this.
if it's
Yeah.
a
Oh,
form of righteousness.
Liba Sata.
Mm.
Seek on it, sir.
Uh, and so this sounds like someone who's asking, who sees that and thinks, well, how do I get love? Well, I think what they're really asking is, how do I get love without, in the name of God,
Mm.
through Jesus Christ, from my husband, without
Without,
being abused?
yeah, without the whole,
Mm.
you're in the kitchen because Ephesians 5 said, "Done, though, done."
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
You got to deal with that,
Mm.
man. When Nicole mentioned earlier, that's like connected to anger. Someone has to get help. And I tell you something, right? I tell you something. If this goes one step
Mm.
further, remember now it's COVID. You're looking at 5 women a week dying at the
Domestic
hands of their husbands in the
Yeah,
UK.
it's
It's no
true.
joke. You have to protect yourself. Like
violence.
I'm
Mm.
making assumptions that this is not a safe situation, but
Mm.
it's not good if you have to ask this question
Mm.
Mm,
if
mm.
you're in a marriage. It is a troubling question to me. Have I jumped the gun? I don't know, but
Mm.
Okay,
sorry,
last
I'm not
question.
trying to put you on heat like that.
No, no, no. Last question, man.
Mm,
You're good. You're
gracious.
good. Last question.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to a single person when assessing what characteristics to look for in the other person or the other half? I think that's a good question.
Money, 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 money.
Ah,
Oh man.
Mm. Um,
Oh man, these
be
questions, man.
realistic. I know some of these questions I'm just
Mm.
thinking, um,
tough, innit? Mm.
how do I put this?
Say it, girl. You can say it. He needs to drive a BMW. You can say it.
I was just gonna say, try and avoid
There's nothing wrong
being
with that.
superficial, because there's a
Yeah.
lot of things that people can change. Like some people say, I'm not gonna date a guy if he dresses whack. Well, you
Oh,
can have
yeah.
a conversation about that. Look for principles, look for fundamentals, look for the person's core, and then work your way from that. Are they a nice, kind person? Let's start there. Are they friendly? Are they respectful to people? A lot of things that you want to look for, you can see without being in a relationship with the person, or without the person knowing you're looking for them. Watch people, watch them, watch how they interact. One of the things I loved about my husband, he was so close to his mom. Like he would do anything for her, literally. That's important. And I know, people say, how they treat their mothers, how they're going to treat you or whatever, but you got to look at these things, as people are in their natural habitat. What do they do? What are they inclined to naturally? Are they somebody who's involved? It's the same for guys when they look at women as well. Is she the type of person who is helpful? Does she,
Is she tidy?
is she tidy? Is she clean? Is there,
Come on.
there's loads of stuff,
That's the
I
main
always
one.
have this joke with my husband where I say, I'm like, look for the girls who are helping at church, not the ones who are standing there looking pretty. Because everybody can look pretty. I can dress up and look pretty too. But can you go in the kitchen and make something from nothing?
Will she pick up the broom at the
Can
end
you
of the,
pick up the
end of the
broom
event?
and wipe? Yeah. Can you clean the toilet? Do you look for more than perhaps
Just the face
yeah,
or the body.
that's what I would say.
She don't pick up a broom. If she don't, when you're in listen, if she don't pick up a broom,
don't even look her way.
If I don't see her pick up a knife or stand behind, like when we have the events and there's food there and she ain't behind the table with her apron, it's not on. It's not on.
You know what? A lot of people don't like.
Does that sound wrong?
A lot of people don't like to say that, but it's true.
I'm saying it.
It's
you
true.
know why?
I agree with you. No.
Why am I saying this, Nicole?
100%.
Why am I saying this?
You have to have a servant attitude. You do. I'm telling you, to be part of marriage. If you're not, I don't want to sound, sexist, but if the woman is not, we're at fellowship lunch and they're just standing there with their pretty bag or whatever, and when the food is done, they can't even get up and put do you help? Do you serve?
Come on.
These are things that people are looking for. People say to me, oh, I haven't found a guy yet. And I look at them and I say, well, I can see why. They can't see what, if you're looking for somebody to be married to share a life with, there's certain things you're going to look for, certain indications.
Come on.
Being pretty is easy. That's easy. You could do that any day. But can you take off your shoes and serve?
I mean, I ain't
do you
lying.
Need to be asked, or you just go and do it?
There's an element of truth in that, especially at the parties I watch them.
And it's the same with guys. Sorry, it's the same with guys, because are you standing up struggling with bags and they're just watching you walk by? Or are they saying, let me just help you with that? Or do you need some help? Are you okay with that? Or are you just standing there looking at you as you walk by?
Or them guys that, guys and girls, but guys who they're not even putting away the chairs.
Hey,
they're supposed to be carrying their heaviest bags. They're supposed to run out. Look, you might be talking about, people might perceive this as toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
But we're talking about something deeper. We're talking about, because men are physically much stronger. Okay, that's fine. Than the women usually that they're with. We're not saying that you have to carry everything, because my wife will carry as much as she can carry.
Yeah.
If we're both on the street, she's going to say, well, I've got 4 bags, you have 4 bags. Do you know what I'm saying? She's cool like that. She's not like, you carry less than me. She can carry as much as she can carry. So that's what we're talking about. Like, listen, in my old church, there were people that, even in my current church, there were people that, because we have fellowship lunch every week, there'd be people that never bring food. They never bring food. Now what am I saying? You think I'm talking about? Never. I'll bring food every week. But you know what? They haven't got a partner.
Turn up.
Yeah.
Come on.
Listen to you.
It's
these are
true
single
though. It's
people.
true.
These are single people, right? They'll
It's true.
never. There were some people in my mind, and then the faces are coming up. They'll never put away chairs. They never sweep. Now
That's
you
not
think I'm talking about duties? I'm talking about quality.
servitude.
No.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
isn't about masculinity and femininity. This is
Yeah.
like, how are we gonna function?
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
mm.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Servitude, man, servitude.
Servitude.
The thing is, servitude. It happens even when the other person turns selfish, man. Let
Mm-hmm.
me just throw this in there. Like if my wife is just, if she, not that it's happened, hypothetically, if she turns selfish, I'm still gonna listen. We've had arguments, and I still iron her clothes and I still bring the food. We
Because
have arguments and she'll still cook. I remember my mum and dad used to argue, and they had Rockies, you know. They'd
oh,
argue.
Rocky.
They wouldn't be talking for a long time, rocky periods, and then
Mm,
you come home from school, don't touch that food. That's your dad's food.
mm,
She'll still cook.
mm,
She'll
mm.
still iron his clothes. She'll still do.
Yeah.
Listen,
Yeah.
man, that's what we're talking about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
mm,
Absolutely.
mm.
Yeah.
Otherwise, them
Yeah.
you just get into them millennial marriages, man. Where it's like I do me,
Mm,
you do you. We're not doing that. It
mm,
doesn't work.
mm,
It's all about, you know what? And when you asked the question earlier, what is marriage? Marriage was about me
Mm.
before I got married. Now marriage is 100% about the other person.
yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm,
Wow. I think on that note, I think that's a beautiful note to end on.
mm,
You understand? I think we've
mm,
had a full course meal here. You understand? Man's belly's full. You know what I'm saying? But no, on the real side, I really do appreciate this kind of conversation. I think we've really touched on some really great points.
Mm,
And we've gone a course of conversation which I think will help a lot of people just to kind of, because it's about having knowledge to change the trajectory of the way that you think. You know what I mean?
mm,
Sometimes it just takes this conversation that we're having right now just to embed certain information, to dislodge some of the dainty ideas that are coming through what we see in TV, film, and everything like that, right?
mm,
So, I mean, this conversation has been really healthy, and I can see the comments as well on the side as well. People are loving the conversation as well. So I want to thank you both for coming here and shelling, some truth, laying down some foundations for people to kind of just stand upon and say, hey, look, this is what we should be looking for. And so, Nicole, thank you very much for joining us. Curtis, again, thank you for joining us again. Hopefully, Nicole, we'll get to have you on here again, because, I didn't go in deep to ask questions, so I want to keep it light, you know what I mean? But the next time, I've remembered them, I put them on the third. But yeah, hopefully we'll have you here again and just kind of just give us some more gracious, wise words as well. So yeah, guys, if you are watching here, you're in the audience. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. Thank you for sitting through this. I know a lot of you guys are saying thank you for the conversation, and we appreciate you as well. Tune in again next week. We'll have another guest. Myself and Curtis potentially will have someone else on to come and just talk about some things as well, just to kind of go deeper again, talking about marriage and relationships as well. Just do you want to guys plug what you do and where they can find you, etc., so that they can also, get a hold of yourself, maybe if there's some things they can support from your end.
Yeah, man. So on YouTube and Instagram, we are This Is Marriage UK. Check us out. This is Marriage UK.
Beautiful. And
for me, I'm on Instagram, Nicole.music. So it's S and then music. And on Facebook as well, Nicole Sanderson. I get, actually, funny enough, a lot of people asking me questions in my DMs. So I'm happy for people to do that if you would like to, anytime.
Yep. Okay, guys. Thank you very much again for joining us for this really deep conversation and talk. Guys, we will see you again next week. All right, 7 p.m. Sharp. If you're here tomorrow as well, guys, we've got a Married at First Sight conversation. It's going to get deep. It's going to get tasty. Okay. I got two lovely ladies on here with wisdom, guys. Okay. No man them apart from me. So I'm outnumbered. So y'all already know what's going to happen. No, just but yeah, tomorrow we'll be back here 7 p.m. talking about Married at First Sight, and then next week Tuesday back again 7 p.m. to talk about some real things. Yes, graciousness. It is Wednesday. Tomorrow we're gonna have a live as well. All right, guys.
Peace,
Love you.
y'all.
Appreciate you. Stay blessed.
Thank you.
See you soon. All right.